So moving on then, we next have Simon Badman, who is a partner in Social B. Simon, please come and take the lectern. And if you need that, it's there.
Good morning. Real privilege to be with you today. That's obviously not me, so let's move on. That's me here. A huge thank you to Catherine, not only for organising the event, but in the coffee break, when we were talking about millennials, and I said, well, of course, I find it difficult being a millennial as well. She went, oh, do you really? So I feel good about myself. I'm going to prove to you today I'm not a millennial. I'm going to talk about collaborating, getting social. In terms of who I am and what we do, I suppose the best way to describe ourselves is you guys out there who run businesses or organisations have all got something to do, something to achieve, an objective, an aim, a goal in mind, whether it's Nick and the next several million pork scratches being sold, or whether you're an academic institution and you're trying to get students in from overseas. How we place ourselves is we're the guys who provide the picks and shovels in the digital sector to help you do that. Whether that's social media training, whether that's hand-holding you one-to-one, whether that's running your campaigns and making sense of this digital spaghetti that's out there for you. We've worked with a wide range of organisations, but it literally is, you know, the startup. I was at the startup on Friday, just doing 2 hours one-to-one, just setting up their profiles, helping them think about strategy, helping them think about who to engage and what platforms. Just noticed there's one of those out of date. One of my colleagues, Lindsay, who set up Social B in 2008, is actually with the DIT, which I think is Department of Industry and Trade. So we do international SEO training on behalf of that department, which has been really good as well. So you've probably seen this quote, culture beats strategy. It's been around for a long time. We do lots of training, and one of the things I always try and find out is what is the culture of your organisation? If you went to tweet something out now that you were doing, or you went to post something on LinkedIn or Facebook or create a YouTube video, how many people would need to sign it off? How many people would throw their arms up in the air? This is not on brand. This is not how we talk about ourselves. How much autonomy do you have? And I think part of the problem is people look at strategy for social media or for digital, and they think it's the panacea of all things they're trying to achieve. I am not a millennial, and actually this takes me back to not quite the 1980s, but a bit after that, probably the 1990s, where I was working as an academic librarian in the University of Luton, and what I noticed working with other libraries and other information providers, there was this amazing resource of data and research, and only the students would use it. And then you go into industry and you see this amazing library that the chief exec would take all the visitors around and say, look at what we've got here, and hardly anyone using it. Probably the case in point was working with an engineering PhD student, and bearing in mind it's not just books, we had access into the fledgling internet, things like DataStar, LexisNexis, I'm really dating myself now, aren't I? ERA and all that sort of stuff. And he was doing some satellite research, had his sort of thesis all set out, and this is what he was going to do. And we found out, he'd been working on 6 months, he'd found out actually someone had published the paper that he was writing at that moment in time. It was going to take him 5 years to write, about a year ago. I thought, why didn't you collaborate with us? We're the experts, we have the expertise. It's not just, with library information though. Right at the start of the day, Gary talked about sort of websites and stuff. And it's interesting because a lot of you will be working on your website, you'll be thinking about your clients, you might give it to the marketing and comms team, but actually you'll brief them about your objectives and what you want to achieve. But even now, we have a website to tick. We have fulfilled our duty in that area. My question to you would be actually, back in the day when websites were being set up from the early 90s onwards, there wasn't really much thinking about how are they trying to help our business, how are they trying to help me in my role in my business. If that's a question you haven't asked, I'd love to chat to you over lunch as well. But that happens even now. And what we see a lot of as well is the social bubble. let's chuck this to the marketing and comms team, we don't understand it. Actually, can you collaborate with your marketing and comms team? Can you collaborate internally? Can you give access to these platforms that Julia was talking about to build your business? It's interesting. There's a lot of moving people in terms of a culture of saying, do you know what? Playing on LinkedIn is not playing on LinkedIn. You're actually building connections. Those connections that you're building would take our sales team to ring through to a receptionist, to try and get through to the receptionist, to try and get through the department, to try and find they're on LinkedIn. You're not playing around. I was doing some training last week, and the first thing we noticed, we've blocked Facebook. Great, what a great organisation to be in. That's a real sort of, we haven't got the culture right. No, we've got the culture completely wrong. So, in terms of collaboration, we've always had the tools, I would argue. Even internal collaboration, we've always had things like SharePoint and other things as well, intranets. Technology is not the problem. It's often the culture, allowing people, encouraging people to use them. And what I thought I'd do is I'd actually share with you three sort of stories you probably haven't heard of, hopefully you haven't heard of anyway, of people using collaboration and using social collaboration really, really well. In terms of internal collaboration, I had the great privilege, this guy's got a great name, a guy called Dirk Wolbers. He works for these guys. These guys have no right to be in social media, to be honest. They produce widgets for farm machinery. And they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube. If you want to go away and do some homework, have a look at their Coach Boris campaign in 2014, all around the Sochi Olympics, and getting their colleagues to bobsleigh on conveyor belts and all that sort of stuff. Absolutely brilliant stuff. But there was a business objective to engage with their clients and customers and to build out platforms. It's interesting, when Dirk started their social journey, this was one of the comments he had. It's not for serious business and we don't want to be connected to it. And all his colleagues said, we don't want to be part of this. This is, social world's not for us. We're selling farm equipment, farm machinery. Our audience isn't there. Actually, their audience is there. If you're in the agricultural sector, Twitter is huge, by the way. Twitter, in particular, farmers tweeting things. Talk about that over a coffee you want to. What did I learn from Dirk? I had the privilege of just spending some time. And, you know, most people come to me and they say, Simon, there must be some social magic bullet. There must be a tweet I put out there and everything's sorted, my business is fulfilled. Collaboration happens, sales happens. Well, he actually went on a journey himself. He had to go in and sell the vision, sell the vision, sell the vision, tell stories. This is what our competitors are doing. This is what these guys are doing. This is what we could do. And just keep on banging the drum. And in a way, I think he was quite, although he's part of a bigger organisation, I think he was quite entrepreneurial. If you take one of the definitions of an entrepreneur, of seeing something that needs change and being dissatisfied with what you're seeing. He kept on storytelling. He enabled internal experimentation through tools such as Socialcast. And I think one of the problems that we have when we try and sell things into an organisation, we think, gosh, this is hard work. No one's taken this up. Actually, go for your success stories. People will get your vision. People will buy into it. And he created social ambassadors and trained them. And what they're finding now is that the sales team are starting to really sort of collaborate, starting to really use these tools. And what Dirk says is, you know, the effect was like a drop of oil spreading, to the point where he was telling me about this email exchange that happened back in the summer, where the guy, it was one of these sort of copy everyone in, and the guy said, look, stop, we have social platforms, I'm deleting your emails, please go onto our social platforms where we can just discuss this, how we want to. But he would say, you know, it's not just a magic bullet, it takes time, it takes effort. You need to have someone determined to change the culture of how you're doing things. What about B2B? Well, B2B is a bit more difficult because a lot of people will not tell you who they're working with, especially in some specialised fields such as engineering and science. They won't tell you who they're working with. It's all hush-hush. So if there are social tools being used, hey, we don't know about it. I suppose my favourite, though, is these guys up the road. Don't know if you've come across RS Components. So RS Components, huge electrical engineering component manufacturer working globally. And what I love about what they're doing is the phrase that Pete Wood, who's responsible for this initiative called Design Spark, is moving them from a traditional company selling into a digital company. And one of the ways they've done this, I think this is just outstanding, it's amazing. They created their own internal social media platform. One of the dangers you could use, you could use groups on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, but you're building on rented land. For these guys, it's something they own. And in terms of what Pete, sorry, there should be Pete there, what Pete says, in terms of the number of people now, they've got on there 330,000 members, all engineers, all part of their community that will be buying from them. These people are also using the tools on the system to submit plans, to submit ideas, and get thoughts on will this work? What kit do I need? And it's actually sort of increased sales as well, and customer loyalty in terms of the RS Components brand. It's a huge undertaking, but it's worked really, really well. And then, last but not least, there's loads of these. So if you want to have a look at what I'd call crowdsourcing, people like Volkswagen, the People's Car Project, people like Marmite, the Marmiterati, the secret society of Marmite, where people are developing Marmite products. Probably one of my favourites from the last year, though, is this amazing piece of kit here, which is a laptop developed, I'm going to try and pronounce his name, Konstantinos, from a company called EveTech. They launched into the electronics market. Here's our laptop, rave reviews, really great product. They suddenly thought, hang on a minute, we've got a whole bunch of reviews here. We could put them on a website like most people do. Why don't we use these people who've reviewed our laptop to create our next laptop? And I think that's pure genius, right at the simple level. Using those people who are passionate, who have an opinion about what you're trying to do, to develop your next product. Your fans are helping you. They can see their touch on it, whether you have an extra USB port or a bigger screen. 1,000 of these over a 12-month consultation. So there are lots and lots of these great examples out there. This is probably one of my favourites at the moment. Juventus did something recently where, these big banners, the crowds wave. They went out to all their supporters and said, let's put a design out for a big match that we've got. What would you want to see on it? I suppose the only caveat on this is actually choose your crowd wisely. Because you don't want to be the next, you all know what this is called, don't you? Boaty McBoatface. So choose your crowd wisely. Take that conversation offline if you need to, a bit like EveTech had to. They're not going to put that in the open and give their competitors a chance to get involved. MK Dons aren't going to put their kit online and say, please design our latest kit. And that's not going to happen. You're going to go to a crowd that's important and pertinent to you. And I think in terms of three quick points to take away to get to collaboration. Think about your community, think about who you're connecting with, and the culture you need to change in that community in particular. And then think about the collaboration that you want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.